The views and opinions in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Spectrum.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this special board meeting to order. We will start with roll call. Beth, if you could help us with that, please.
Good evening. Becker?
Here.
McCoy?
Here.
Shelton?
Here.
Sitnikow?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Vanden Heuvel?
Here.
Warren?
Here.
All right, all 7 board members are present. With that, I'd look for a motion to go into closed session.
Eric, can somebody else read it? I'm having a hard time with board docs.
Sure. Anybody want to have the motion in front of them?
I don't.
It's click on adjournment.
I can do it. I have it up.
Thanks, but on.
I move that the board convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically to wit, negotiation of collective bargaining agreements pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which a government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, to wit, employee compensation pursuant. Oh, sorry, did I?
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Okay, I thought I read the same thing.
No, it's
Pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which a governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically to wit, the future location for John Dewey Academy of Learning in Northeast Wisconsin Innovation School.
Is there a second? Oh,
Second.
all right. Beth, are we taking an?
I'm just going to do it because that whole thing will pop up on your screen. Okay. Smith?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Vanden Heuvel?
Aye.
Sitnikow?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
McCoy?
Aye.
Shelton?
Aye.
All right, 7-0. We will go into closed session. Thank
See you
you.
at 6.
Before tonight's regularly scheduled board meeting, we have a public hearing scheduled. The purpose for this public hearing is in regards to waivers that the district is applying for around instructional minutes, educator effectiveness, and kindergarten as a prerequisite for first grade. And by state statute, we are required to post a public hearing in case anyone wanted to weigh in on any of those waiver applications. Last time I checked, we didn't have anyone registered. Beth, is that still correct?
That is correct. Nobody has registered.
Okay. And because we don't have anyone registered, I would look for, do we need a motion to adjourn the public? Yeah, so I'd look for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that wraps up our public hearing, and just give me a second so I can refresh and we'll go right into the regular board meeting. All right, I'd like to call the regular board meeting to order. We took roll call at 5 o'clock before our closed session. All 7 board members are present. Would just like to point out that we're joined by Superintendent Steve Murley along with members of his team. We're also joined by 2 members of the Intercity Student Council, President Noah Becker from West High School, as well as Damaris Brahim. Is Damaris here? Not yet. Might be coming in a little bit. All right, we'll welcome him when he joins. With that being said, the first thing on our agenda after that is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Mission statement. Andrew, do you have the mission statement in front of you? I forgot to check with you ahead of time. Sorry about that.
Not in front of me. I can get it.
Thank you.
Okay. We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda as a part of our opening activities are collaborative commitments. Again, these are statements that the board developed in a series of work sessions together, going back to 2019. We read these at the beginning of every one of our regular board meetings as a reminder of some of the things that we've committed to do as we work through our board meetings. So I'll call people around in order that they're on my screen to read each one of the 7 statements. We'll start with Christina and then go to Brenda and Rhonda.
You're going to have to skip me again. My board docs is still not working. So
Okay, no
sorry.
problem.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Yep, no problem. Brenda, Rhonda, and then Dawn.
We will strive to review board materials and seek clarifying information before board meetings.
You're gonna have to skip me as well. I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. Sorry.
No worries. That's the world we're in. I'll read number 2. We will embrace diverse views and perspectives as a path to effective solutions. Dawn, then Andrew.
Yep. We will show consideration to everyone, fellow school board members, staff, students, families, and community members in our speech and behavior.
We will consider the merits of ideas as the primary driver of our decisions.
Laura, could you read the next one?
Number 5, we will offer our comments efficiently and succinctly and avoid repetition in order to keep board meetings to a reasonable length.
I can do number 6. I got it now.
Thanks, Christina.
Sorry. We will create equitable and inclusive opportunities to promote community engagement.
Thanks. Rhonda, are you up or you want me to do 7?
Let me do it. I'll find it.
No rush.
Where is it? We will engage in conversations. Oh, sucks on my phone. I'm sorry.
That's not the commitment.
No, it's not. And it keeps swiping off. Go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. No, I appreciate you trying. Thanks. Number 7 says, we will engage in conversations in a way that allows for all perspectives to be shared, considered, and valued. All right, thanks for that, everyone. We'll go next to open forum. We have the Intercity Student Council report. I did just get a text. Damaris is having some internet issues, so she'll join us as soon as she is able to work through those. So Noah, we'll toss it to you. Hopefully you've got everything for us.
No, let's hope so too, right? All right, thank you, Mr. President. At the district level, the district, in partnership with NWTC and UWGB, this week we'll be offering virtual field trips for those in grades 10 through 12 to help kind of explore and explain some potential career options. Also at the district level, the Metro Math Meets will take place, which happens between different districts in the area. So individual schools are preparing their math academic teams, which usually compete in the final competition in spring, and also in the Metro Math Meets before then. And the GBAPS Support Center is open for technical or academic assistance for students who require it. And the messaging around that has been going out recently. At the NEW School of Innovation, NEW just concluded student meetings in which students and teachers meet one-on-one to discuss progress and to kind of demonstrate the proficiency that students have gained in that class. And NEW has also started up an esports league, much to the excitement of other school students, and I told them this, that I put this on the report. At West High School, Stink Cancer's 3K run walk pink Halloween, in which as you might guess, it involves wearing pink and dressing up for Halloween. That took place. And West Student Council conducted a Halloween costume contest, which the freshman class won by one submission, which was an interesting announcement to give. At East, they conducted a Spirit Week last week, which involved a multitude of dress-up days, and NHS and Student Council are partnering to set up a trivia contest. At JDAL, a virtual event night where students present the projects they have been working on for the year will occur on November 12th, and they also had a Spirit Week type of event for Halloween. At Preble, they were at a pumpkin carving / decorating contest. I believe I saw some images on that website, and I would highly encourage the folks listening to go check it out. I was impressed that people put that much dedication into their pumpkins. I am lucky if I can get a jack-o'-lantern right. And at Southwest, they have started a podcast called Together We Will, and they released an episode already, and I believe they have more that will be coming out. So that should be an interesting thing to give a listen. That concludes.
Thanks a lot, Noah. That's great. All right. Next up in open forum is some public recognition.
We have one recognition tonight as you look at the recognition section on there, and Mr. Franco has been selected as one of the most influential Latinos in Wisconsin. And we appreciate the opportunity that you as a board have to allow us to celebrate with our staff when they have that opportunity to be recognized on a broader stage. We're certainly fortunate to have him as a member of our team. As you read through the accolades in there, he's doing a wonderful amount of work for our children and for our families and for our community. Just blessed to have him on the team and appreciate the opportunity to on this larger stage celebrate his success and the reward that comes from that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve. Definitely very well deserved. I've had the opportunity to work with Luis in other professional endeavors, and he's definitely a treasure for our district and for our families. And so congratulations to Mr. Franco. All right, and now we have an opportunity for public forum. As a reminder, in this virtual format, anyone who wishes to speak and address the board can go to GBAPS.org and register to speak up to 3 o'clock on the days of board meetings. You can either submit comments to be read orally, or you can receive a phone call and speak to the board live during the meetings. With that being said, I don't believe we have anyone registered to speak tonight.
We have one.
Oh, we do have one. Okay, I'm sorry. I must have missed that. Are you calling them, Josh?
Yep, and I got a busy signal, so I'm going to go and try this again. call's been accepted, so just waiting for them to come in. No luck here. I'm going to try one more time. Okay, here she comes.
Ms. Langenfeld, are you there?
I am. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. I'm in a place and space where I didn't have great access to Wi-Fi, so I finally am there. So thank you for that. I'm calling in tonight. Good evening, President Vanden Heuvel, Vice President Shelton, members of the Board and Board of Education, Superintendent Murley, Michelle Langenfeld, 2900 Shelter Creek Court, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm calling tonight to recognize and also honor Mr. Luis Franco, who serves the Green Bay Area Public School District community as the Bilingual Family Engagement Coordinator, for being named one of the 39 of the most influential Latinos in Wisconsin. When I think about Luis, what comes to mind immediately is relationships, relationships, relationships. I had the privilege to learn with and from Mr. Franco during my tenure serving in the Green Bay Area Public Schools, first in his role as the family interpreter, and then the family engagement coordinator as and team member serving as part of the newly established Equity Department. He also serves on behalf of many councils in our community, as you well know, including Chief Brown County. Luis always goes above and beyond to meet the needs of all of those he serves while wearing many hats. He serves as a liaison to the district bilingual community, engaging families, whether it be at registration, open houses, family nights, working tirelessly to keep them informed. His own experience as a parent in the district has afforded him the ability to speak directly from personal experience. He is the trusted go-to guy for our bilingual families, providing support, information, and great assistance. When COVID-19 hit our community last March, Luis did not hesitate to step up and serve at the Washington Middle School Technology Device Distribution Site, assisting bilingual families as they picked up their Chromebooks and chargers. Luis often provided me with advice and insights to help bridge relationships with our families, often working side by side in our community, whether it be at the farmers market, surveying parents, meeting with families at Casa Alba, registering families at the JBS meat packing plant, or meeting families at Head Start, at school, and at community celebrations. I not only learned with and from Luis, but it didn't take long to realize that Luis is a very highly regarded and trusted, as well as influential member of our community. In his free time, he also is noted for his talent as a soccer coach and an extraordinary DJ and entertainer. It's clear that Luis is most deserving of high regard and great respect across our community. I'm honored to know you, Luis, and the Green Bay Area Public School District is very fortunate to have you on their team. Congratulations, Luis. You are most deserving of this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's good to hear from you.
Yes, thank you, and congratulations again, Luis.
All right. And that will wrap up our public forum. It takes us to agenda item number 3, which is the consent agenda. Did board members wish to remove anything from the consent agenda for discussion? Go ahead, Andrew. You're on mute, I'm sorry.
I would like to remove the Chromebook item for discussion.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? All right, Andrew, would you mind making the motion and then just adding the movement of letter G to item 4?
Sure. I move that the consent agenda be approved with the exception of item G, which would be moved to item 4.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, consent agenda passed 7-0. That takes us to item number 4, which is the student Chromebook purchase. Andrew, do you have some specific questions on that?
I thought it was a big enough item that it warranted some, I guess, warranted some discussion and about pros and cons of, obviously there's a price differential there. It's also not a vendor that's in town. I know there was some point compensation given for that. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about it. I think it's too big of an item to just do in a consent agenda.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Josh, we'd ask if you just walk through the process and help clarify some of those questions about the local preference points.
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, the majority of our Chromebook fleet, which is currently deployed to kids during virtual learning, 13,500 of those Chromebooks are due back to the leasing company in the summer of 2021. We don't actually own those Chromebooks. We leased them 4 years ago. So we are now at the point where we need to plan for the replacement of those Chromebooks. So that's the reason that this RFP was written. It was written for replacement of the full 13,500 that are due back to the leasing company, along with a 4-year warranty with that accidental damage protection, and then some Chrome licenses so that we can manage them on our domain. You can see the specifications we outlined for the Chromebook. Reversible 11-inch touchscreen Chromebooks. We've had some success, especially at the lower grades, with that form factor. It's the kind that has a hinge that can flip all the way over, and you can kind of run it as a tablet. And we also had some success when we were in session and doing distance learning with high school students, particularly in world language and some advanced mathematics. The touch screens are really nice for math. So those were our requirements. You can see the selection criteria. We based it at 85% on price. We gave 5 points to the location of the bidder to allow for some local preference. That is something that is non-standard, at least in recent procurements, and then 10 points for a good prior experience with the district. This is a pretty big deal, and if there's a vendor that we have experience with handling this sort of thing, we'd prefer to go with them. That was kind of the idea on the scoring. And you can see the purchase recommendation at the bottom of the memo and how the scoring shook out. The Chromebooks with the warranty were awarded to TRA of Milwaukee. TRA supplied our staff laptops, and they've supplied about 1,700 Chromebooks to the district in the past few years. You can see that Camera Corner was the overall top scorer for the Chrome licenses, although they were not the low bid. The local preference did come into play there. They were the highest scoring on the Chrome licenses. We considered the Camera Corner bid two different ways, one with a full accidental damage protection, which was a requirement of the RFP. They also provided a quote that included a warranty, but not the accidental damage, because they felt that they had bid a more durable device. So we did score those both ways, and you can see how the scoring matrix turned out there. Do you have any specific questions?
You're on mute, Andrew.
As far as warranty service, then how is that handled? Is that we ship it to them and they ship it back repaired or replaced?
Yeah, with this one, with TRA and Camera Corner, and actually it was a requirement in the RFP to provide a courier service. So they actually pick up once or twice a week at district facilities, take them to the repair facilities, and then they drop off repair devices.
Okay.
Noah?
Oh, sorry, no, I missed you.
Two screens, there's so many people here. It's good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Just briefly, this might be too strange of a question, so my apologies there. Well, the specifications on these look pretty good. Is there any way I can compare this to the previous model that will be used in the same fashion? Does my question make sense? Like the specifications of these versus the old ones that you have to give back now?
I can dig that up. The if you wanted to Google it, or for those listening, the old model is a Lenovo N23. And I can try to dig up the specific specs and get those over to you, Noah.
Right, thank you. At the end of the day, no, this looks good. I'm sure it's thorough, and I think the technology department is pretty good with what they recommend. We generally have a lot of success with everything. I haven't heard any, I mean, aside from the beginning of the year, which was mostly internet stuff, the computers themselves weren't a problem. So I'm sure this will go great. Thank you.
Yep, these are significantly better computers than the ones we bought 4 years ago, or at least 4 years ago.
I would hope so, Josh, with the way technology goes.
Right.
All right. If there aren't any other questions, we need a motion to approve the student Chromebook purchase.
So moved.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passed 7-0 as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. All right, takes us on to number 6 under presentations, and we have a quarterly financial report.
So we appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you on a regular basis and talk to you about the financial position of the district. One of the things that Pete and his team have graciously agreed to do is use this not only as a reporting opportunity, but also as a growth opportunity for all of us. And so once a quarter, they're going to select something that's pertinent to the work that's currently underway in the district and provide a little bit more in-depth analysis of that financial component and how it impacts the work that we do with students and families in the community. And so obviously right now, timely for us to take a look at what's going on with support from the federal government and the state government. So Pete and his team are going to share an update on what we're doing within the CARES Act. So Pete, I'll turn it over to you and your team.
All right, thanks, Mr. Murley. And under the leadership of Mr. Murley, we're putting together a program that'll extend, throughout the year and then become a tradition in board meetings where a quarterly educational component is done. And I know back in January when I began in this position, we had made that as a commitment. January and February, we made good on that commitment, and then COVID hit and it's kind of threw us all to a tizzy. We've in the business and the operations departments have been working extraordinarily hard throughout the entire COVID closure, throughout the summer, throughout the beginning of the school year. It has been a tremendous burden on the operations of the district to get things to where teachers can do what they need to do with our children. And I have to say and commend the entire operations team for doing that, as well as the entire teaching and learning team, right down to the classroom teachers. The work has been stunning, and it has been a constant effort and labor of love to do the best job we can for our children during what is a worldwide pandemic. And one can assume that United States has been, the leader in how the pandemic has impacted its country, and Brown County and Green Bay schools are certainly no exception to that. Having said that, Angie and I have engaged in a discussion with technology providers. Josh has helped us with this as well, to produce a report or a software that will actually go into our BITEC system, data mine the information, put it in a nice report for you, and we'll start having that available for you in the new calendar year, so that report will be available on a quarterly basis as well. We're working with 2 different vendors right now, trying to come to an agreement on which one we're going to use. So that's how that process is going to come forward to the board, with a 3 or a 4-page, very easily read and lots of graphics, nice way to show the board exactly where we are at any point in time as a snapshot. Once we get that to you and we have that component to you in this fashion, and you fully understand and engage in that report, the report will then become more of a sideshow, and the primary thing that we want to convey with the board on a quarterly basis is a piece of information that we believe the board needs to know about the finances or the business or the operational functions of the district, so that you become more fully aware of what's going on. As a result of that, Lisa Bynum, who technically is not on the operations team, she's housed within teaching and learning, is the person in the district that handles the title funds for the district, as well as the CARES and the GEARS money for the district. And so early on, Nancy Chartier and I thought it would be great to have Lisa in front of the board to explain exactly what the CARES Act is for the district, and the GEARS money and that act is for the district, so that the board has a full understanding that those funds are there to tide the district through the difficult times the pandemic has caused. And we have these funds available to us to be spent until September of 2022. So, we're not going to spend them all in one pile. We're not going to spend them all in one year. We're going to use these funds to tide us through the tough times that the pandemic will still cause for us and our children. And I'm proud to have Lisa here to go through a very quick PowerPoint, and that'll be our educational component for this quarterly report. Thank you. I'm not sure who's doing the PowerPoint for you, Lisa, whether it's Josh. Can you get the PowerPoint up for Lisa? Thanks.
Sure. Maybe. I've got the PDF here, Pete.
I'm warming up the.
Shall I start walking through, Pete, without the PowerPoint, or would
There we go.
you like me to wait? Oh, okay. Wonderful. Okay. So the CARES Act, there are actually 2 types of CARES Act funding that are available to local education agencies, or districts, if you will. There are the ESSER funds, which are the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Program funds. And that was available to all districts in Wisconsin. The allocation that our district received, which is also shared equitably with private schools, which I will talk a little bit more about later on, we received a little over $5 million. Then the second type of CARES Act funding is the GEAR funding, the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund.
And so 2.9 million is the amount that our district received for gear funding. Gear funding did not go to all districts. That was at the discretion of the governor to award that funding to districts who were seen as having the highest impact from COVID-19. All of this funding is distributed via WISE grants. So that is the same system that we use for all the different title grants and IDEA. It's the same system that we're very familiar with, and has all the same types of guidelines within it to safeguard how we are using the funding, and make sure that we're using the funding appropriately and it gets approved by DPI along the way. As Pete said earlier, this funding is available for purchases all the way through September 30th of 2022. This funding is not intended to be planned right at the outset, because it is literally to respond to things that happen during this crisis, which, as we know, can be very unexpected. So we're doing a good job using funds other than the CARES Act funding for some things that come up. And I will, now let's go to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit about how this funding can be used. So these are the main categories that the funding can be spent under. So if we think about preparedness and response, that can be for things like soap, PPE, physical distancing, shields, that type of thing. We have not used it for those types of items. What we have used it for in terms of preparedness and response is some extra time for the school nurse on behalf of some extra COVID efforts and time that was needed. The private schools have used the funding quite a bit for things like soap and cleaning and PPE and physical distancing. We've used the funding mostly for the next two bullets, addressing long-term school closure and educational technology. So the long-term school closure is for when we are not able to deliver the regular in-person instruction. So we have to deliver our instruction virtually or differently than we normally would. So some of the things that we've used the funding for in regard to that is a call center and some time for professional development at the beginning of the school year for all teachers to prepare to be able to teach virtually. The educational technology piece, we've used funding for internet access. So Kajits was a large amount of funding, software and devices, and even the mailing of devices we have used funding toward. The outreach and service delivery to special populations is really to address those unique needs of low-income students, English learners. And I mean, I'm proud to say that we do a good job across our district reaching those special populations to begin with. One example of something that we've done, funding that we've used, is for the two-way multilingual texting platform would be an example of outreach to special populations. Then addressing after school and summer learning is very straightforward. Mental health services and supports could be used for things like hiring additional social workers, costs incurred when you're trying to schedule in order to maximize that relationship building, which is something that we have focused on but haven't used CARES Act funding for. So a lot of the things that are allowed under CARES Act funding we're doing, but we just haven't utilized CARES Act funding to do those things. Could you go to the next slide, please? I wanted to talk a little bit also about the equitable participation for private schools. Just like we share other federal funds with private schools, they also get an equitable portion of the CARES Act funding. It is based on the number of low-income students in our district and in each private school. There was a litigation that was just resolved recently when they were deciding whether we would be using the number of low-income students or we would be using a total enrollment. Our district got a larger portion of the funding if we used a low-income count. And the resolution of that litigation is that it's the low-income count that is being used. So what that comes to then is that 6.19% of those overall allocations that I had on the first slide go to private schools. So for ESSER funds, that's 312,000 and GEAR funds, 181,000. There is a lot of communication required around this equitable participation. I held individual consultations with each private school discussing how the monies can be used. An individual consultation for ESSER and an individual consultation for GEAR funding. As a public school district, we must manage the funds. So private schools can't go out and purchase something and then come back and be reimbursed by the public school district for what they purchase. They submit requests, and if what they want to do is allowable, then I go out and purchase that item for them or get that service for them. Everything that's purchased, if it's not consumable, it remains the property of the public school district. So some things that have been purchased by private schools like technology devices, cleaning sprayers, shields, anything basically that's not consumable, we keep inventory on, and at the sunset of the CARES Act funding, that comes back to us as a public school district. The allowable costs for private schools are very different. They cannot request anything that would need to be installed. Like there can't be anything related to construction. They can't do something to their HVAC system. They can't have us install Wi-Fi in their buildings. It has to be anything that we spend the money on for them has to be something that we can literally go into the private school and easily remove from the private school. They cannot use the funding for us to pay private school employees. So there are more restrictions around how they can use the funds. So far, they've used a lot of funds for different types of software. Some schools have contracted with an outside vendor for things like hand sanitizer that they come in and refill on a monthly basis, or cleaning services. That's a contracted service that comes in and sanitizes their buildings. It really varies by school. We have, I believe, 17 private schools participating, and it's just all over the board in terms of what they are spending the funding on. So Pete, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add or if anyone has any questions.
Nope, I'm good, Lisa. Thank you very much for that report to the board. And I do want the board to know that we're very carefully and very cautiously using the funds. We do understand that through this pandemic, there's going to be things that are unknown to us today that will come up that we'll need to in an emergency fund. And we intend to use the CARES Act money to its full extent. We're not going to leave a dollar on the table come September of 2022. I guarantee you it will all be spent. My responsibility is to make sure that the stream of income in and out of the district continues to flow fully. And that's what I intend to do. And this is just part of that.
All right. Any last minute questions for Pete or Lisa or anyone else? All right, thank you very much for that. And Steve, appreciate the quarterly financial report, and certainly Pete coming in and sharing that information and keeping that always front of our minds. So
Eric?
thank you. Oh, sorry, Rhonda. Yep, go ahead.
Some Wi-Fi issues, but I do have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
First, I'm just wondering, is there a reason there was anything itemized to share with us at all? And what the money's been spent on, and just curious about that.
Are you wrong? I do have some notes on what we've spent as a public school district.
Is that something that could be publicly available? Or just people have asked, and I'm wondering about that.
Rhonda, certainly we can share that information with you. One of the things that we are doing as well with much of the PPE that's been purchased already is we've applied for funding relief through the FEMA organization with the federal government. So we're waiting to see, where we are with respect to that application before we, potentially could address some of those concerns in the CARES Act. So it's a fluid situation. But we can certainly put together a report and provide it to the board in a memo that would show what we've claimed from the federal government to date. Absolutely.
And also, do you know, I mean, you said there hasn't been a lot of PPE necessarily ordered. Has there been any? And if there has been,
Rhonda, we've ordered a tremendous amount of personal protective equipment, not only for our employees, but for the eventuality of having students on site. Currently, we're sitting with 500,000 masks ready for students when we get to a face-to-face situation, and they'll still be required to wear masks. As you know, with 20,000 students, even having 500,000 masks on hand, if students need a mask change daily, that supply of masks isn't going to last very long. So we're prepared to go out and provide major purchases for students when we have a situation where they're here face to face. And we've also provided equipment and personal protective equipment for our employees while they're here. So gloves, masks, face shields, N95 masks for our nurses as required by workers' compensation. So we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure that our employees are as safe as possible. And when we have our children in schools face to face, they will also have whatever they need to be as safe as possible.
That's great. I personally would love to see that itemized in a public document if possible.
So I would just like to add with the PPE that it's been funds other than CARES Act funds that have been used to date for the PPE, but the CARES Act does not have a supplant provision. So there is no danger in using district funds to purchase PPE. And then later on using CARES Act funds to purchase PPE if needed. So those expenses, so let's say that there's more PPE needed. CARES Act funds can be used for the PPE, even though so far other funds have been used for the PPE or other grant sources that Pete is working on.
Okay, great. And it would be great to see that on just in an itemized list of that. Just what we have in stock, what we've ordered, what we would need potentially if we were to be in person at all, just to have an idea of what that looks like. I don't know what the backup order is for ordering PPE these days. Is it something you can just order like that?
Yeah, Rhonda, it's a really good question. It is getting better,
right?
But we're ordering hand sanitizer by the barrel. We've received it in barrels, and then we dispense it into our own bottles and distribute it to schools so that, hand sanitizer when we're face to face will be in every classroom, every school building, every hall, every entryway. I mean, we're gearing up.
Okay. And just there, I've received questions that there wasn't a list of what has been spent, purchased, and specifically what's been purchased. So just hoping maybe that you could develop that and share that at some point.
Yeah, and
soon.
it certainly is the public document as we make claims for spending against the CARES Act money and the GEARS money. It goes to the DPI and the claims process on WISE grants, and all that information is publicly available, but we can make it available to you as well.
The public would love that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that information. I think we're ready to go on to number 7, a discussion. So we have the pandemic education update, and today we'll focus specifically on social emotional supports.
So before the team jumps in, I just want to give them a big round of applause for everything that they've done. Obviously, teaching and learning is at the heart of what we do as a district, but we also know that if students do not feel safe and secure, if they do not feel supported in their learning environment, it makes it very difficult for them to take advantage of the outstanding instruction that our teachers provide. And so this group has started last spring with a focus on this, renewed focus over the summer, done a tremendous amount of work over the fall. We've got lots and lots of people that are here on the call with us. And the idea is to make sure that they are able to provide answers to any questions you have, but really to help walk through some of the work that we've done. And then just a quick note, a reminder that we've decided to put these updates on every board meeting. This particular request came from the board table to have a better understanding of our SEL program and how it is providing support for our kids. So we appreciate you asking for that and the opportunity for us to share more about the fine work that the team is doing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vicki.
Thank you. Yeah, Katie and Christina, you can go ahead and turn on your cameras, please. Thank you for this opportunity. It did come from the board table, a request to give an update on the work that's been going on since March. This is actually an extension of a lot of the work that our social workers and school counselors do on a regular basis. So at the table, Katie DeVillers, Katie Cahoon-Suko, and Christina Jingle will present. You may have noticed there are more people in the group tonight. They will leave their cameras off at this time, but when we get to the end of the presentation, they're available to respond to any of the questions that you have. So with that, Katie DeVillers is going to turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us and for giving us this opportunity to share an update on what we've been doing to support staff, students, and family. Although you're hearing only from 3 members of the Student Services team tonight related to the information in the memo, I would like to take a moment just to recognize the number of people who have been doing this work for quite some time. Jackie Hauser was one of the leads of the school social emotional behavior health work group and is Associate Director of Special Ed. Sean Manders O'Brien, Associate Director of Special Ed. Our Special Ed Behavior Program support teachers, Pam Super and Jessica Evers. Our Behavior Management support teachers, Dana Hansen, Michelle Graff, Jackie Hafes, Ashley Resch, Kate Sturks, and Johanna Tyler. Our Family Engagement Equity team, Ingrid Parker-Hill, Luis Franco Toscano, Yusuf Kazim, and Carrie Hoyman. Renee Every, our District Alt Ed Director and lead. And she was lead of the school-based or school social emotional behavior health work group as well. That the whole social emotional behavior health work group, with too many names to tell you, but people from across the district, as well as Katie Selzer, our Director of People Services, and Claudia Hendrickson, Director of Student Services. The purpose is listed there for you, but really it's to give you an update. This is work we're passionate about, and as I said, we're excited to share it with you. Like everyone in our district and community, we did not have a blueprint for the changes that needed to occur for all of us to function effectively in a virtual learning environment. We were and continue to be committed to going on this journey with staff, students, and families to support their social and emotional well-being. In the memo you received, we structured it in a way that was a timeline of how things evolved since the pandemic hit and this journey that we've been on in March. We'll be highlighting some of the high quality supports that we provided during the following times. at the time of the school closure, during summer school, when we were completing summer work to prepare for the start of the school year, during the first 2 months of school, and then what we are planning to do ongoing. We believe our update will clearly demonstrate how we responded to the social emotional needs and how we will respond in the future. School closure. When the school closure was communicated in March, we were immediately concerned with the trauma and anxiety that would be experienced by staff, students, and families. And we were concerned about how we would go about supporting them in a virtual environment. We really wanted these stakeholder groups to know that our goal was to have them feel supported through the great amount of change that would be required of them. The first two resources listed here really do a great job of displaying the comprehensive way that we went about supporting all stakeholders during the shutdown. The landing page provided a plethora of resources for staff to support themselves and eventually students and families during this traumatic time. It was organized by staff within our Student Services Department and included information from our district, professional organizations, and our community to help staff begin to navigate their practices in a virtual environment. A key feature of the landing page was a Google form where staff could pose questions and get answers on any topic that was a concern for them. As has been the case in the past, the Green Bay community offered support in many ways as well and rallied to meet the changing needs of families as a result of the pandemic. It was so important for us to collaborate with many community agencies to ensure that families were connected with resources to meet the demand for assistance, even more needed because of the loss of jobs and uncertainty for accessing resources. The Family Community Connection doc shows all the information that we used for staff to have one place to find out what they needed to provide the support to families. Counselors and social workers played a key role in connecting with families to identify and ensure that all their needs were met in a timely manner. As I said earlier, we were concerned with the impact of this traumatic event and how it would affect those that we serve with so many unknowns. There were two resources that provided support in terms of self-care and caregiver capacity that we shared. The Relational Care Ladder was a tool for staff to use to encourage and enhance self-care. It focused on self-reflection within the themes of safety, security, awareness, feelings, and empowerment. We also created another resource that was aligned with the Keep On Wisconsin campaign that was happening in our community. It was for parents who are vital partners in their child's educational success. It provided a way for them to connect by showing staff participating in these self-care activities and sharing additional resources and strategies. This was shared over several weeks to encourage application and retention of the strategies, and the tools help to identify the social emotional needs of students and early intervention. It was really important for us in student services to listen to the needs of the stakeholders that we serve. We asked our PBIS internal facilitators to share their efforts on the doc listed PBIS MLS activities during virtual learning. This document provided us a glimpse into what schools were doing initially on their own to meet the immediate needs of their students and families. This information helped all schools learn about each other's work and gave us ideas to inform our future support for them. Now Katie is going to share the supports that we provided for summer school.
As summer school approached, we continued to discuss and identify how we could best support all stakeholders' social and emotional needs. In preparation for summer school, Christina and I were able to work collaboratively with teaching and learning to provide summer school staff with an overview of the importance of SEL and how it correlates to academic achievement. We also were able to talk to the staff about what SEL is, identify the 3 competencies that are outlined by DPI, which include emotional development, self-concept, and social competence. We also were able to discuss a platform or a mode for delivery of SEL. And along with that, lessons and activities that were gathered from our district counselors and social workers were also provided to our classroom teachers. It was also really important to continue to provide support throughout the MLSS, the multi-level systems of support during summer school, to meet the needs of our students, families, and staff at both the universal, Tier 2, and Tier 3. This was supported by many departments, including English learners, special education, family engagement, school social workers, and school counselors. An example of this work was the development and collaboration by 2 of our elementary counselors and our classroom teachers on the delivery of universal SEL during summer school in the elementary. Their work continued to be around self-regulation, growth mindset, and self-concept. The example is also located in your memo. When the decision was made to start school virtually, we felt that we needed to really restructure our social, emotional, behavioral health work group into 3 subgroups, with additional stakeholders representing the needs of the district staff and buildings. This would allow for the team to go deeper and to provide a more thorough understanding and toolkit for our staff to be able to meet their own personal needs, as well as our students and families. We centered our work around 3 major themes. The first being education of staff around social emotional learning. We see this as the foundation. We felt strongly that we needed to establish the why the need to focus on social emotional, and why social emotional skills needed to be taught directly and established for all. We also discussed the competencies, and we really highlighted the power of relationships and how to develop meaningful relationships with empathy at the center of our work. We also provided staff with activities to build authentic and meaningful relationships in a virtual environment. But we knew that in order for SEL competencies to be directly taught and to be able to provide all students with a check-in on a daily basis, we needed a mode or a tool. This is why we focused our work on establishing a district-wide advisory or homeroom time. One of the goals was to have our students and staff have a safe and collaborative space to begin each day and to intentionally be able to focus on social emotional development of students. Later in the presentation, you will hear how 3 of our buildings have provided predictability, consistency, and a positive relationship in their homerooms and advisories. Some of the tools that were also provided to buildings included how to facilitate circles and how to meet your students where they are, along with culturally responsive questions and prompts to guide classroom teachers. We shared structures and components of morning meeting, which was used in our elementaries around greeting, sharing, activity, and an announcement. We also then felt that it was really important to focus on how to be successful as a student in the virtual learning platform. So we wanted to continue with the MLSS school and classroom supports. Matrices and lessons were developed to assist buildings at the universal level, as well as classroom teachers to be able to directly teach students what respectful, responsible, and safe classroom behavior looks like, and how you as an individual student can meet those expectations. Also included was a resource for staff members to use when unexpected behaviors arose in the virtual platform. The responses are tied to the work of Dr. Holly to validate, affirm, build, and bridge to ensure cultural responsiveness. Christina will take you on the next steps of our journey.
Thanks, Katie. Can we advance the slide, please? Thank you. So none of us wanted to start the school year in an offsite learning format, but here we were. And as we embarked on the start of the school year, it looked very different than the learning that occurred during the summer. Just as educators worked hard to learn how to convert lesson plans into Seesaw and Google Classroom, our students and parents also needed to learn how to navigate these platforms. For some of our families, especially those with several children in the household, this was a daunting undertaking, and it really required a differentiated approach to engage and support our students and families. But staff really continued to demonstrate that whatever it takes approach, and there's many, many stories of student services staff providing the step-by-step instruction through a screen door of the family home. We just had a recent example of this where I was able to join some of my colleagues in facilitating a home visit with a family who had children at the elementary, middle, and high school level. I just couldn't imagine trying to navigate all those schedules and knowing when they had to log in and knowing all their login information. So it really helped to really engage with that family to truly understand where our families and students are at with this. But it was really amazing how we just all converged. We really all came together to support the family. And it was a fabulous example of how multiple districts within our, or departments within our district helped. So from technology helped us troubleshoot. We were able to take food to the family from food services and snack bags that were put together by our community partnership department. It was just really a truly amazing example of how we all came together. And then beyond the technology basics of our offsite learning, student services staff have embraced and leveraged the technology to engage students and families through the Bitmoji classroom craze and the virtual mindfulness spaces as a fun and interactive way to address the social, emotional, and mental health needs of our students. I hope you all had an opportunity to take a look at the examples that were linked on the memo to see some of that awesome work happening in the district in this area. We were so excited this year to have the new advisory homeroom time mentioned earlier, as there's so many possibilities on how this dedicated time can be used to enhance relationships and outcomes for our students. And while there's a wealth of great information and resources that Katie talked about housed in that Google Classroom developed during the summer, is really intended to be delivered at the universal level, our behavior-focused program support teachers have also begun the work of creating a social emotional library. And this is for our different grade levels containing explicit lessons that are aligned to the DPI social and emotional learning competencies, which are designed for students who could benefit from those more intensive services. In a typical school environment, we all know how crucial parent involvement is to the child's academic performance, but this is ever more critical during off-site learning. Again, I'm just absolutely amazed by our parents, but they also need our help and our support. Therefore, the behavior team created a series titled "The Struggle is Real," where just-in-time tips, strategies, and resources are provided for our parents to ensure their child is academically engaged and successful during this off-site learning. This content is also differentiated by grade level and available both in English and Spanish. This pandemic has created feelings of anxiety, fear, and loss for many of us. The resilience in our school community can never, ever be understated, but the student services team has made a concerted effort to adapt our existing initiatives to continue to provide a continuum of mental health supports for students. Student services staff are utilizing evidence-based resources such as sources of strength and signs of suicide to increase knowledge of warning signs, help-seeking behaviors, and empowering student leaders to create those positive school climates even during off-site learning. And through collaboration with our community partners, we knew that local inpatient treatment providers were serving a high number of youth. Understanding the importance of the seamless transition and return to school, new processes are being developed to promote timely communication and those continuity of care for some of our most vulnerable students. Our participation with the Employee Resource Center continues to be utilized at increasing levels, particularly in the areas of supporting anxiety, stress, and depression. These endeavors would not be possible without those close partnerships that have been cultivated over years. And talking about our partnerships, we are so incredibly fortunate and grateful to our childcare providers who have been supporting our school-age children with their education. Given this significant undertaking, the district is committed to sharing expertise and providing support to our child care staff who are tirelessly navigating many class schedules, lessons, and keeping our young learners engaged in the learning process. Child care partners will receive a training in trauma-sensitive schools, resources, and our occupational therapists are working to provide training on the usage of new or existing sensory tools to promote student regulation. The goal is to provide practical information and strategies which can be immediately implemented in the child care settings to help support our students and our partners. Can we move to the next slide, please? As evidenced by information thus far, there's been an immense amount of work done to address the social, emotional, and mental health needs within our school community, but continuous improvement is vital. Some of our schools have adopted the Leader in Me framework to deliver that universal social emotional learning, and the district is continuing to explore the possibility of implementation of this framework district-wide. The district was able to capitalize on an opportunity to participate in an evidence-based home visiting training module, Parents as Teachers, which will begin implementing this model initially utilizing a targeted approach, but with the goal of expansion. What I love best about this program is it's a proactive approach to developing or enhancing our relationships with our families. It is absolutely essential that staff, student, and parent self-care remain at the center of our work. Efforts are underway to utilize existing resources, including restorative practice, compassion, resilience, and mindfulness. These practices are being incorporated into the centralized series, which is designed to support both our new and seasoned employees. This has really yielded positive results. And tomorrow night, we'll launch the first of a series of mindfulness capacity building classes designed both for self-care and integration into the classroom setting. And just lastly, as a component of our continuous improvement, tools are being developed to capture the wealth of knowledge and expertise within the district to create that climate of sharing and collaboration to support our buildings and our educators.
Although we have provided a great amount of high quality supports for staff, students, and families' social emotional well-being, none of that matters without the great effort of our staff out in the building. They proved during this time that they are willing to learn about and focus on the social emotional well-being of themselves, their families, and their students all at the same time. We have asked a great deal of them, and we truly appreciate their efforts. One of the biggest changes was mentioned already, the homeroom advisory time. As a way to show you how this practice is being implemented, we asked for feedback from 3 of our schools, Howe, Franklin, and Preble. All 3 of these schools recognize that even though building relationships with students in the offsite environment is more difficult, it is also crucial to student success. They have used the homeroom advisory time as an opportunity to build positive relationships and consistently check in on our students. These schools have dedicated teams who create lesson plans for the staff to use during this time. The lessons all have a focus grounded in social emotional learning. At Howe, well, let me first say that all 3 schools have people listening in are ready to answer questions from you. I'm going to summarize Howe and Franklin, and then we have a representative, a teacher from Preble, who will be speaking directly to you about their efforts. At Howe, relationships are the key to student engagement. Husky Huddle centers around the importance of relationships and the opportunities for all students to have the same access to universal social emotional learning. The Universal Behavior Team partners in planning professional development for the staff, so it goes hand in hand with the students' lessons. At Franklin, the team regularly seeks staff and student feedback in order to be responsive to those needs. The students' responses show that students feel more connected to staff and other students and feel their IB lead teacher values what they have to say. Staff survey results report the same. Now joining us from Preble High School is a science teacher, Emily Markowitz, who's going to share what's happening at Preble during this important time.
Good evening. Just to get started, I wanted to give a shout out to our whole advisory team. We are a unique group from different backgrounds around the school that don't normally get to work together. And it's been a great opportunity, and we've been able to build a great program from scratch in this virtual world. We have scheduled 131 sections of advisories at Preble, and they are scheduled by grade and by alphabet. And then within the alphabet, it's randomly scheduled so that we can be inclusive and that we can have equity for the students so that they can have access to all teachers. Our plan is to keep the students together with their fellow students and their teacher for their entire time at Preble so that we can continue to build those strong relationships. Some successes that we've had is we've been able to focus on the whole child more than we might have in previous years. In advisory hour, which is only half an hour, but we do stuff with academics and post-secondary and planning, but most importantly, we do a lot with social and emotional health. We're checking in with those students every day just to find what's going on in their lives and to build connections. We're playing games, playing Kahoot, trivia, little activities, you know, to share, you know, would you prefer to eat tacos or pizza? And then that starts a little conversation from there. We know we're doing well because of word of mouth, what we hear from our students and fellow teachers and parents in the community, that it's being recognized. This is an important part of the day when important information is presented, and it's a time to bond in our virtual world. Some challenges, you know, just making those connections in a virtual world, in our offsite learning, and kind of customizing lessons for grade levels because we're just starting from scratch. We've kind of done the same lesson for all 4 grades, but we certainly appreciate freshmen have a different, you know, different requirements than seniors, different needs. And then also just making sure attendance stays high on Wednesdays, because it's their one check-in is advisory and they're not always wanting to check in. So that's what I have to share from Preble.
Thank you so much for sharing, Emily. We appreciate your time. Just so you know, the Student Services Department is continuing to work on supporting staff with homeroom advisory time. We're learning what's happening, just like we heard from these 3 schools. And Christina and Katie, 2 of our facilitators, are heading up that work. So we'll continue to grow that no matter what environment we are in. That ends our update for you. We hope you found it informative. We really do appreciate the opportunity to share the work that we're most passionate about. And we thank you for your ongoing support. If you have questions, there's names listed there for you to contact. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie. And Eric, as I mentioned at the start, we do have some folks here available. I don't know if there are any questions, but if the team could go ahead and put your cameras on now. Eric, we're available.
All right. I saw Christina's hand first. Go ahead, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you so much for putting this together. The memo and the presentation are very thorough. I'm sure it took a lot of time to pull all of the work together. And it's kind of nice to do that, I think, sometimes, because you get to look back and really comprehensively see all the things and all the work that you're doing, the efforts around this really important issue. So thank you for this. I think my question is not about your work, but moving forward. how can we, or what opportunities exist to continue to let the community know that this is at the forefront of everything that we do? How do we keep talking about it? What opportunities exist? Because the work is great, but it's also important to continuously communicate that this is what we do and that we do it really well.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear from the team what their thoughts are.
I think I could speak for how one of the things that we've worked really hard at is making sure that our whole community is on the same page. So we're lucky enough to be a community school, so we partner with the resource center. So our families that have our young scholars in our neighborhoods are able to kind of get some of that same information. And we also make sure we really do a lot of communicating with our parents around what social emotional learning is, and so that they have the opportunity to get some of the same learning. Last year, we did some mindfulness pieces, and we had an assembly for parents where they came right in. So as we continue this, continuing to provide parents the opportunities to have that same vocabulary and basis that our kids and our staff have.
Right. So you're saying, Amy, it's essentially, it's embedded in your communications that you're already doing. And it sounds like you're also kind of elevating it and pushing it even more. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Thank you everyone for your work, your very important critical work at this time. I have a couple, I guess, thoughts on this. I know that you had mentioned some of the classes and other events that you were having related to self-care. How do you balance when there's so much screen time happening, right? And the self-care becomes additional screen time to engage in something. How do you balance that, and what do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about that implementation, and are you thinking about maybe some other things that eventually we could get kids away from the screens? Because we know, right, that it's not good. And that's a big part of the problem. So I'm just wondering what you think about that and what kind of exploration you've done on that topic in general.
Yeah, while the team is thinking about how to respond to that, as soon as we have the details down for a blended model and what that looks like, which we'll be sharing with the public in a couple of weeks, then we're going to start taking a look at what kind of changes can we be making to the virtual world right now. Because you bring up a great point. For some of our students and even our staff, it's way too long to be on the computer. So I'm wondering if anybody on the CEL team has a response for the self-care. Are we doing that offline, or does the student or adult need to be online?
Yeah, so I can, Emily and I and our advisory team, we really make sure that we are meeting the students' interests, because screen time is screen time, but when it's their interests and what they want to do and talk about, they forget that they're on the screen. So it's a lot easier to be able to focus on just them. And we do try to also keep it fun and increase the excitement by making sure that we're doing things that we get positive feedback. So when Emily spoke to the Kahoots, teachers right away were like, oh, the kids love this. And these are high schoolers, and you know, we have seniors who they've never had advisory, and they're like, what is this class? And we've had students, the show and tell. We have seniors that were doing show and tell, and they wanted to stay on longer because a student was playing his guitar for his class, and the other students were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I think that it's only that maybe the students don't see it as screen time when we're focusing on what their interests are and what brings out what's in their life. And so we're hoping that that takes away the exhaustion of it just being on a screen.
Is there anything or a discussion related to, someone had brought this to my attention and I thought it was an interesting idea and concept and consideration of having virtual lunch periods where kids can actually eat, they can engage with each other, they can be social. It's not academic at all. It's an entirely different experience where you're, you know, they're able to socialize a little bit more and just engage with just each other. Are we doing that? And if not, would we consider that?
Rhonda, I'll answer that quickly. My kindergarten daughter's favorite part of the day is lunch bunch. And there's an aide who facilitates a group of kids and just watches what they talk about. And oftentimes there aren't any kids in the lunch bunch, and it's just my daughter and the aide talking back and forth. She just loves to chit chat with somebody. So that's at least happening at my kids' school. I don't know if it's happening across the district, but
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's other grade levels, if that's something that's happening or considering something that we consider happening.
There are multiple elementary schools that are doing something very similar to that. Call it a lunch bunch or virtual recess, where it is supervised by a monitor or noon hour supervisor. And then there is something also, I believe at Edison, they are having their SLAs available every day during the lunchtime, so that kids can go in and just chat with someone or have interaction with somebody during that time.
Jackie, can you tell them what SLA stands for?
Student Learning Advocate.
Thank you.
Is that so it doesn't sound like it's something that's happening district wide, it's just random. Is that right? Is that correct?
I believe it started maybe at one school and the idea is spreading.
Okay.
And I think they're finding success with it. So kids that aren't maybe engaged otherwise are finding that to be a place where they can meet with some friends or some adults and have that one-on-one time maybe. It's slowly spreading across the district.
Okay. It seemed like it was something that some parents really wanted to potentially see grow if possible.
Rhonda, at the high school level, I can share that it's right now probably more at the individual level, you know, like student by student basis and need. But it's definitely something that when, especially ninth graders coming in, we're reaching out to the middle schools to see what they need. And what we're finding is that they might have been in a lunch bunch, and then we're trying to connect them with that same type of social interaction at the high school. So it's not something that's like uniform, but it's definitely something that we would address individually.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I could speak for elementary too. And we do like, and I think only for my colleagues, if you're in a small building, you might not have a lot of like noon hour supervisors or aides that are able to do supervision, but we do it. And it's a place where kids are actually able to talk and discuss things. So I think it so far it's worked out really good, and it helps the kids, I think, stay a little bit more focused when they're learning because they know they have an opportunity coming up to talk with their friends.
Well, and some of these kids haven't really engaged with other kids for months, so it has to be wonderful for them.
One of the other things that we didn't mention was that our district really allowed for us to continue our clubs and our extracurricular activities. And advisors just submitted a virtual proposal, which has been awesome because now we're still continuing to hold GSA Club, for example, where students can come together and meet and still be a part and have that sense of belonging of school. So that's been another really awesome thing that's happened in our district, and those clubs continued from March on, that we've been continuing those and providing a safe space for students to convene and to be with each other.
There's also concern for the adults that we serve in the screen time and what we're asking them to do in their social emotional well-being. And so we've been talking about that and having discussions about prioritizing to make sure when we are together with them that we're discussing and doing the things that have to be done, and infusing some activities that will also promote not necessarily lunch bunch, but some things to make sure that they have an opportunity to socialize and not talk about work for short periods of time, and shortening meetings if possible. So it's a lot of the same things you talked about with kids. We have the same concerns for our counselors and social workers.
Brenda, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, thanks for this. Boy, your department has done an enormous amount of work, and it's really impressive, just the navigating and changing you've had to do with, and the flexibility to be able to continue meeting the needs of students. I just have one question, because this is something that I had a conversation with the parent last week, and I'm wondering if, and this was related to, I think, high school, the fatigue that sets in with this kind of learning, and it feeling like it's going on forever, and you know, just all the changes. And I know this particular mom knew of another mom who was having a struggle just keeping her child motivated. And it's a student who normally was a very good student, and now they're just sort of looking at this as, I just need to pass and get through and get done. And I'm just wondering if that's bubbled up as a concern, and if you've had conversations about that, and are you providing that kind of support to students who are just sort of losing their interest, I guess.
I don't want to do all the talking, but I would say absolutely. And I know we have great referral processes in place now where it kind of starts with the teacher, and that again, where we can kind of be on top of it is during that homeroom time. But again, kind of to Rhonda's point about self-care, self-care happens outside of the classroom also. And that self-care has to happen proactively for it to really be effective. So it's not just about what's being delivered within the classroom content, but what is that student doing to engage in self-care to keep their stress level down when they're not in our virtual learning settings. So I think that that's a big part of our work, and just helping them make sure, again, that they're keeping aware of different warning signs that might suggest that their stress levels are rising. And what are they doing to mitigate that? And a lot of that is self-care strategies.
And I just one follow-up on that. Because of course the teachers all started with brand new students this year, many of them. Are the teachers sort of taking notice of, you know, the how the student did in prior years, to just kind of use that as an indication of kids who might be again sort of falling off the radar, or just losing that motivation to really do school the way they used, to really engage in school the way they used to?
I think our learning support teams are looking at a lot of different components, like engagement of kids, attendance, grades changing, and talking through the way to individually best support some of those kids, so that you are looking at a kid from the previous years and seeing if there's changes, and kind of talking about, as a building, how can you wrap around and support that student with whatever they may need at that time.
And is that something that parents, is the communication out to parents that if your child is struggling with that kind of thing, that there are people they can call and things like that at each of the schools? Is that part of the, I forget what it's called, but the parent support center? Parents are always encouraged to connect with the student services team from each of the schools. Okay, all right.
Brenda, I can share with you too at Preble. We have been looking at data in our intervention team, obviously around engagement and academics. And so for our freshmen, what we found was obviously research shows how important 9th grade is, and what it then shows for graduation. So we are actually this week rolling out the Hornet Huddle, which is going to be on Wednesdays, to provide more support to those students that are not being as successful. So each person from student services to administration took on a caseload of students where we're connecting with families,
setting up Google Meets with the student, and then also encouraging them to go meet with their core teachers on Wednesday to get some extra academic support. So the case manager is really that social emotional support. What do you need? Where should we prioritize things? And then on Wednesday will be that academic support. We also we've put out a survey to our freshmen, sophomore, and this week is our juniors. Just kind of a check-in, where are they at, so that they can confidentially share information, and then student services goes through that, the results of that, and makes connections with any kids that have asked, like, please reach out to me, whether it's academic concerns or social emotional concerns.
All right. Yeah, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Thank you very much for all the work you're doing there.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you. So clearly, Preble is really well developed in this. What are we doing to share ideas between schools and get some of these things going? And I realize it's not one size fits all, and maybe there's something that at say West might be work better there than at Preble, but I'm assuming if there's obviously the three schools that are kind of volunteering to come to the board probably are the most cutting edge. So how are we sharing between schools, especially during a time when the thing that you might do is have, like, in normal times, this would be I would think some of these folks might lead a tremendous face-to-face staff development, or maybe they are in fact doing that virtually, sharing with colleagues. How are we getting this out to other schools so they can pick and choose elements of this that work for them? Because obviously there's great things we're seeing going on at these three.
I can respond to that. Although we limited it to only 3 schools being represented today, there are wonderful things going on in each of our schools. Preble, Howe, and Franklin just drew the short straw for tonight and had to join us. But I assure you there are really wonderful things happening at each. Our school social workers and counselors meet regularly as a team and share what's working and what isn't working at their own schools. In addition, all of our principals meet in teams. We have 2 different elementary principal teams, and the middle school team and the high school team, they meet regularly as well to share what's working and what isn't working. So I think the collaboration's been really good.
I could follow it too. I think our executive directors give us the opportunity every time we meet weekly to share. And we also have our own administrative CLTs. So like when you talked about self-care, like one of the things for staff that one of the other principals had shared is they were doing like porch partners or porch buddies, where they, in the school, people that wanted to participate and give their address had somebody they didn't know assigned to them, and they were just dropping off little gifts or little encouragements or notes. You know, we had a wellness committee because we knew going into this school year that our staff wellness. So our wellness committee created on one of the new things for Google Jamboard, and it was all activities that, like Rhonda, like you said, that were off-site, right? You got a point, or you got to fill out your square if you went for a walk or you went to a park. So I think a lot of my colleagues I could speak for, we get the opportunity to share weekly with things that are going, like things that we're doing and things that are working well. And I think we have a really good network to communicate just on a regular basis to see what's going on.
And I just want to jump in and add that so our middle school counseling department talked about the need for the curriculum to be shared. And so our Franklin lesson plan folder was shared. So all of the counselors, and I believe they shared it with their social work counterparts as well, to figure out what are some of the lessons that would fit the different schools and the different needs at each school, that they could pull from some of the things that we had created at Franklin. So all of those lesson plans went out, at least for the middle school level.
There's one more layer to that as well. There's a behavior support teacher assigned to each school in the district. So as we're involved in those meetings, we hear the different ideas that schools are doing, and then we are able to share that with our team, but then also share that with other schools we support. So a lot of those messages get sent through all those different levels throughout the district.
I'm going to call on myself here for a second. Oh, and then I'll go to you, Laura. Sorry. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's here tonight. I mean, certainly the information that's being given, Christina and Katie could easily have gotten up here and given us this presentation. But it's reassuring to see that supporting the social emotional needs of our kids isn't just the job of a social worker or just the job of a counselor. To see this really diverse group of people who are thinking about this and working on this and helping to move it forward in our district is really inspiring. And so thank you all for extending your already long days and already a lot of time on the screen and being here to share it. With that said, my question is, supporting the social emotional needs of our kids is always really hard. But I'm curious, in the pandemic, in what ways has it gotten harder? And is there anything that's easier or anything that, normally would be dealing with this, but it's actually an improvement? Anything in those two areas that anyone has?
Eric, I would have to say that the hardest thing is we don't see them every day. So when you used to see a student walking in the hall and they were upset, or they had some kind of physical appearance about them that you could tell that they needed someone to talk to, we don't have that. So we have to go by word of mouth. We have to do surveys and get creative of how we can make sure that we are supporting all students, not just the students that we knew about beforehand. But I think in the world we're in now, we have to make sure that we are reaching out to all students to ensure they know who their supports are and that we're available to them.
I could share something that we've noticed that's gotten easier, or that's easier in some things. Sometimes when you have larger classrooms and you have multiple students that sometimes have some like behavioral challenges or things they're still working on improving, they can sometimes like help other students get off track. And so we've had several kids that have really excelled this year that I was concerned about from last year, and really just having, our scheduling time allows us at how to have students one-on-one or in small groups in the afternoon, and really just being able to watch some of these students like shine and be able to tap into some like one-on-one time or resources that they haven't currently had is really exciting. I think the challenges, I would say, I just want to speak up for my social worker, is that a lot of families right now have a lot of different needs. And even though we all work as a team and share, she's the main point of contact. So I know she's working her tail off like from morning till night. So I think it's just the multitude and needs and being able to fit all that in a day.
And I was just going to reiterate what Amy said. I think for some of our kids with anxiety, this has allowed them a method or a mode to be able to communicate with teachers that takes maybe some of those anxiety factors out. So they've been able to really flourish in this time too.
Greg, did you have something? I saw you unmuted for a second.
Well, I just wanted to comment on successes and just seeing how the ability of kids and students and then our teachers to adapt to the new to all the changes. There has been so much let's say of the unknowing dropped on our students, on our teachers, and now we know the district changing over to Zoom. We have another challenge, and to not be able to sit next to somebody to explain something like that, or to explain a math problem, to explain a relationship issue, that proximity that we need as human beings, it has been probably the biggest challenge and hurdle to get over that others have commented on. But I think that it's amazing what has happened, and how innovative our teachers have been, and how they've overcome everything dropped on their plates, the students as well as the teachers, and they've been willing to change. They've been willing to just, you know, try new things on a daily, weekly, every day, every minute basis. I don't know if the public can really understand how dynamic the teaching profession is, from minute to minute, what you have to do, the decisions you have to make. And now you took somebody with 20 years of experience and you had to you had to change their whole, they've had to change their whole way of dealing with those unknowns, as well as our students. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So just wanted to highlight those 2 points.
Thank you. Laura, did you have?
Yes. I just wanted to offer my appreciation as well for all the work that's being done in this department. I'm really, really proud of our school district, and what they've been accomplishing in this area. My hope is that all this work and the intensity of this work will position our district so that when we come out of this pandemic, we'll be able to reclaim normal faster than maybe some other districts who might not have our resources, and I can tell from the way this team is speaking that this work takes a great deal of sensitivity and discretion and insight. And that's all apparent by everything that you guys have been sharing with us tonight. So like I said, I'm just really, really proud that we can do this as a district. And I guess my one question would be is, what do you need from the Board of Education right now? Is there anything additionally that we can do for you, or this would be a good time to kind of talk about that if there's anything you need from us.
I would just say, on behalf of our staff at Franklin, we had started to do some of this work before the pandemic. So before COVID, we already had our team together and we were trying to figure out how are we going to manage this. And we were lucky enough, grateful that we were able to find funds within the district office to get some summer work done, to do some kind of background to get that foundation really set up for us to go into this school year. And I think just that level of continued support would be the best thing that we could get. Being able to continue doing work hours to make sure that the planning is in place, the lessons are structured, set up for our teachers, that we're able to balance that with all the different needs of our students and different things that are coming on. Because I think that was something that really started us off on the right foot and got us moving forward to a really great place. So our team, like I said, was just so appreciative that we were granted that. And I think the more we can continue to do that moving forward, so it's not just here was advisory from pandemic, and then now we're back in school, we don't need it. Because I think it is a need that we're going to continue to see for many years.
I would second that. I think your continued support along with continuing advisory, to do it 1 year and say, oh, it worked or didn't work, wouldn't be fair. And I think that there's way more positives to advisory. And, we have some resources, what other resources are out there and how can we support our staff like Emily and other teachers who are volunteering their time to be part of the team moving advisory forward.
Question.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Rhonda, and then we'll go to Noah. Sorry, Noah.
To that point, or some of those last points, how do you measure this work and the impact of it? right? I mean, if you were to measure it.
I can speak to that. Some of the stuff that we've been able to utilize is our school climate survey. So our students take that, and our parents take that, and our staff take that. And a lot of those questions are centered around relationship and belonging. And there's also some components in there that tie to culturally responsiveness. So I think when we look at those data points, we're able to see what areas we still need to grow in and what areas that we are doing well in. So we do utilize our school climate survey, and we put that into our school success plan to make sure that we are continuing to monitor and grow.
And I would agree with Amy that Preble does the same. So we have our different surveys looking at just feedback from parents and from students, but we also have it on our climate survey, so we can really gauge where we need to improve.
In the fall, we also included questions on the student survey, which really kind of we hope to have as a baseline, so that if we did stay virtual, we were able to compare things like that too, as we proceeded over time, to see if we saw improvement in some of those areas, or if they were areas we needed to continue to grow in.
Yeah, we're doing that at the middle level as well. Student surveys, staff surveys. So it's measuring success of lessons, success of time. As you know, are things that proper? Is this a proper use of time? You know, we're even asking, are the lessons too long, too short? Things like that. Are they meeting the needs of our students? So it's ongoing.
Go ahead, Noah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will just say I've been accused of sending out attachment-laden documents, but this is different. But it shows that there's a lot of work going on, and I mean, I can't read it all that fast. I haven't read it all yet, but I plan on it, and it's impressive. I'll just say that. So I appreciate the work. Don't take anything I say as to be like against what you guys are doing. I recognize what you're doing is great. Specifically on the topic of advisory, I think looking at what different schools and their particular cultures have as far as the way they handle advisory would be something interesting. I know there is, survey fatigue for sure, right? You can see there is such a thing as too many surveys. That's definitely something you can get. But I think perhaps dare I say, a survey would be in order at some point. I foresee virtual instruction continuing for longer than probably many of the other folks here, but I think it'll go for sure through the end of the year. So I think that is something that should be looked at, just to analyze how advisory is helping or not helping other people, which is where I come to this. So from what I have heard, and this is more anecdotal, but I've talked to a few folks from different schools handle advisory differently. But essentially seniors especially have kind of given up. They're kind of at the part, and this was alluded to earlier, where they just want out, and advisory is not going to do anything for it. I especially think a lot of the folks that would really be helped by some of the things that are gone over in advisory, they don't go to it. That's the problem, right? And that's, of course, I get, you guys know that that's one of the biggest struggles, is getting them in the door. But I mean, some of those things that are good aren't getting out to the audience that they really need. And that's where some of the behind the scenes work comes in. But I guess what I've heard is there's a lot of complaint about advisory being too long or whatever. I think it's in its first stages. I appreciate that. And I think it can be, I think it has been a net benefit, but there are certain things to look at, and how that's implemented in each school is what I'm going to say there. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for the team? Well, again, thank you all very much for taking times out of your evening, your time at home with your family, to share this information with us. It's tremendous. Continue to do the work. Thank you to everyone who's doing this work that's not here tonight. We know it takes a lot, and we certainly appreciate it. So thank you.
And again, big thanks to the board for asking and providing a platform and a forum for us to share the amazing work that this team represents that's happening in schools and classrooms throughout the district. So we appreciate you asking and giving us that opportunity to share.
Oh, sorry, Andrew.
Yeah, so is this also our general, the general item for pandemic education that was discussed?
Yep, you may certainly ask any questions that you would like.
So I wasn't sure if we were, okay, so there was one specific item under it. Got it. So this is a small one, and it doesn't need an answer tonight, although maybe there is one and it's well underway. One kind of counter to screen time is, are we getting books out to kids again like we did last year? Be that with whatever safe methods are necessary. Are we doing that, or are we looking into it?
I can comment at the middle level that we run a pretty regimented materials distribution. It was more up and running when before the temporary shutdown, which is not so temporary anymore. And so we have our monitors, our dean of students, and working every Wednesday distributing materials still. So hard copy materials, if it's worksheet packets or textbooks or art supplies or science materials or sewing kits. You know, we're getting all of those hard materials out as well. So the students are off the screen is doing those hands-on activities. But I do want to say that also, you know, the expectation at the middle level is to have that short 10 to 15 minute mini lesson, and then the students work either independently, possibly in a group if that's what the activity presents. But so it's the student isn't sitting in front of the computer all day long. I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. The expectation is to have a 10 to 15 minute short lesson, followed by work time on whichever, you know, whatever the topic is, and then coming back around at the end for a few minutes to do a wrap up. So there are multiple longer breaks throughout the day as well, which we all know is extremely crucial for this time to relieve some of that stress and take care of yourself. So it's not just, you know, 45, 50 minutes straight staring at a computer. Because the expectation, that's not the expectation. The expectation is to set up the lesson, students work individually for some time, and then come back together at the end.
Okay. I appreciate
you were
it.
asking about the Scholastic. Was that more about the Scholastic books, Andrew?
And or library books.
Okay. Yeah.
Are there some options for that, or is that something that could be looked into? Which again, that might not be. We might not be at a point yet where, I mean, people can go in and select, but selecting online or doing some things by mail or something.
I'll get back to you about the library part, but we do have distribution at all of our schools for other materials.
Okay,
I'll get back to you about the
I have
library
seen
books.
that. I have seen that in action. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
Actually, that's a great reminder from Andrew there. When you have questions like that, remember this SEL question came up at one of these discussions, and that gave us then the opportunity to recognize how important it was to get back in front of you and share a much longer presentation and much more depth about what we're doing. So we appreciate these questions because it will help us guide the agendas as we move forward. So that we can help keep you up to speed.
Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, Steve, I just wanted to, I was going to say the exact same thing. I think you sent the email back on the 26th of October. And I know we get a lot of emails, so if any of y'all missed it, but yeah, I mean, the point of this agenda item is to ask questions, but if you're looking for more detailed information, if you email that to Steve and the team, then Eric and I can work and to put these on so that we get the information to everyone in a timely way, because we know that, you know, the need for information, rapid response information was there. So thanks for putting this on tonight. And I hope that this is a well-run agenda item, because I know there's a lot of information that we need.
And there's certainly two tracks here. So where Christina's requested item was one that very reasonably led to a full report because it was a very detailed thing. I'm glad that I asked my question in this format, because I would not have, well, I'm sure the content would have been good. I wouldn't have needed, like, if it did trigger a report on the distribution system of textbooks, I've seen that in action and it's good, and I'm not worried about it. It's really just the supplementary reading materials. So that was better served as an individual question here. So I'm glad that we have both. I just wasn't sure how to take it off the agenda, but again, essentially there's one was 7A1 is social emotional supports update, and then we're still in 7A, which is pandemic education. So thank you very much.
Hey, what, Andrew, how about if moving forward, we actually just delineate a Q&A right at the end of it, so that it's clear to folks that there's an opportunity for you to ask those questions.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
Maybe just a preview for you. When we come back on the 23rd, we're going to provide an update on what a blended learning environment will look like. And then we know moving down the road, based on some of the questions that you've asked, we know that there's interest in what might next steps be for us in online learning if we're going to be confined to that for some period of time. So that's another thing that we're working on for you, and those will be a little bit more in depth.
Can I add to that?
Please.
I don't know if I can, but I'm just going to say it and you can stop me if I can't. Along with the blended learning environment example and tutorial, can we revisit and consider reaching out again to find out who in fact would absolutely not be interested at all in that? Who would be interested in only being virtual, just to nail down the numbers?
Yes, and we can share with you what our next steps are for reaching out to parents, and that's actually part of this blended learning plan. Is once we bring it to you as a board and you're able to look at it and say that looks good to us, then we know that we're moving in the right direction. And if we don't need to do any course corrections, we do plan to reach out to parents afterwards. So we'll add that to the conversation on the 23rd. Thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Seeing none, we will move on to action items. We have 3 action items related to our waivers. So looking for someone to make each of the motions, starting with item A.
I move that the request to the Department of Public Instruction for waivers related to instructional minutes, educator effectiveness, and kindergarten as a prerequisite for first grade for students enrolled in home-based private education programs pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 118.381B related to COVID-19 as presented be approved.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, we're going to do the online voting. Beth, we're ready to go. Fingers crossed.
Should be open.
How are we looking, Beth?
We're just waiting on 2.
Okay.
Almost there. My phone times out and then I got to get back in.
It's not coming up on my phone, I'm afraid. Oh, wait a minute. It's way, way on the bottom. we go. Did you get it, Beth?
I did. Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
How about me?
Perfect. The motion has carried. All board members have voted in favor.
Take us to item B. Brenda, do you want to keep going?
Sure, I move that the suspension of, whoops, sorry. Wait a minute. I think I missed the waiver. Oh no, never mind. That was board policies. I move that the suspension of board policies for instructional minutes, educator effectiveness, kindergarten as a prerequisite for first grade students enrolled in home-based private education programs, Board of Education meetings, and public participation related to COVID-19 as presented be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Beth.
Actually, Eric.
Oh, yep.
Can you just reiterate again, or maybe Steve can reiterate again about the kindergarten prerequisite? Just to get it out there.
Tell you what, I'm going to let Melissa do that because she's busy working right now with a group to make sure that we can get some communication out to parents to make sure that they're clear on it. So I'm going to let her speak to make sure that we are right on target.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to clarify. We are not waiving kindergarten as a prerequisite for first grade as a whole scale waiver. This is simply because the compulsory attendance law and the law that requires kindergarten to have been enrolled in and taking kindergarten prior to first grade do not match. And so if parents want to homeschool their students for kindergarten, there is no quote unquote kindergarten program. And so if parents do homeschool their children for kindergarten for this year, they would still have to enroll their students in kindergarten for next year, absent a waiver of the requirement. So for those parents who do homeschool their students in kindergarten, we're going to count that year of kindergarten and allow them to then enroll their students in first grade. But if you simply didn't enroll in any school for kindergarten and didn't do a homeschool program for kindergarten, your child would need to attend kindergarten next year.
And Rhonda, we do recognize that there's some confusion about that. So we've got the team working to put together a summary for that we'll send out to all kindergarten parents in the district.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Go ahead, Andrew. You're muted.
Well, I am really glad that we're getting all the all the waivers and the suspensions right. I just didn't want to go without saying that I know there's people who are maybe thinking whose kid is kindergarten age. We'll just write this one off and wait till next year and do what we can at home. I have to say some of the best community feedback that I have gotten has been about how kindergarten was going. And particularly someone mentioned a niece or nephew they had at Langley and what a great experience it's been and how they're doing such a great job making it make sense for that age group. And so I hope people who are maybe thought it, why bother enrolling a kindergartner for this? I just hope they're at least giving it a look and getting a virtual tour of what's going on and not just automatically dismissing it, because while we will make things work if they chose a different path, there's some great things happening at those low grades here.
Good point, Andrew. All right. If there isn't any other comments, we're ready to vote, Beth.
Okay, online voting has been open. Great, all votes have been entered. The motion carried. All board members have voted in favor.
All right. And letter C.
I move that the parent guardian determination date for requesting that a student's course grade be pass fail or a letter grade as approved by the Board of Education on April 13th, 2020 be amended from November 30th, 2020 to April 30th, 2021.
Second.
Ooh, Todd. Any discussion? Go ahead, Noah.
Keep it brief, sorry. So just to clarify, and it's related to this, so when this gets extended to April, so like this will apply to every school where they'll transition your grades over to pass, no grade, unless you specifically ask for it. Is that accurate? Like that's across the board?
So this is for the counseling staff as they work with reconciling students' grades from last year. And so this gives them that opportunity to reach out and make sure that they have captured the students' and families' wishes about that. The problem is our counseling staff has to literally go through every single transcript for every single kid, one class at a time. And then what they're doing is they're discovering some things where they're not sure that the parents or the students understood the choices and that they may not have made choices that are in the best interest of the students. So then they have to reach out individually to each family and talk them through that. It's just taking longer than we anticipated. And so we're looking for the opportunity to make sure that we have adequate time to have that individualized dialogue with each family.
If I can, okay, so that's what it is, just because that time changes, and they're going to everyone saying, here's maybe what you should look at, etc., or maybe you didn't quite understand this, that each transcript is the best it can be. Is that my understanding of why this is? Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Any other questions on this? All right, we're ready to vote, Beth.
It's open. Great. The motion has carried. All board members have voted in favor.
All right. That's the end of our action items. Last thing on our agenda, number 10, is agenda setting. You'll see here that Steve and Beth and the rest of the team have been working to put together kind of an annual calendar. Certainly right now, if anybody has any suggestions, we can take those now and look to see where they might fit in, but want to have some greater clarity on sort of what's coming and, you know, what's next month and what's 3 months out and so on and so forth. So this was a change that I think people will find welcome that Steve suggested. So at this time, does anybody have any agenda items? Obviously, you can give them to Christina or I or Steve at any time, but an opportunity to make that request here. Go ahead, Christina.
I'll just put this out there since we're talking about it now. Steve, I know you had shared an email about update around assessments coming up in the spring. When do you think that would fit into our board agenda?
I think there might be a twofold thing there. One of them is assessments in general as they apply across grade levels and schools of the district. And then I think the other thing that we know is coming is an assessment waiver request at the federal level. We know from our meeting with the Big Five last week and the DPI representatives that were there, they were waiting to see what was going to happen with our presidential election. And are already working to put together a comprehensive request to what they consider to be perhaps a more receptive U.S. Department of Ed on January 21st. So there might be a twofold report there, Christina. One would be an update on what's happening with assessment requests at the federal level, and then also a summary of assessments that we currently utilize by grade level, by school in the district. So I think that's a twofold piece. Let me work with the team, and I think perhaps if it's all right with you, I might wait until after the January 21st, or maybe even early in January. We'll know from the DPI where they're going, and then we can give both those to you at the same time.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Rhonda?
So I received a communication from someone asking if we would ever be interested in considering this, and I'm just going to announce what was offered to me. Recently, the Milwaukee Public Schools joined a national lawsuit against Juul, Juul, right, babe, and Altria, alleging that they are targeting minors. City of Milwaukee Common Council has also approved hiring outside counsel to consider litigation against vaping companies. I was asked if we would ever have an appetite to join that conversation. So just a consideration is something to think about.
There's a class action lawsuit on that. I'd be more than happy to provide you some of the information on that and then determine whether or not that might be something either the district wants to join the suit or maybe file an amicus brief on as others are moving that forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else from the group? All right, then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes 7-0, and that adjourns our regular board meeting for the month of November. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank
Bye,
you all.
everybody. Take care.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, to view the program again. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.